Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Coding Care. So today is the first video of the microservices. So in this video we'll discuss all these things about the microservices, what's the microservice architecture, and we'll discuss one by one. But before that, I'll teach you the a real-time example. We'll create one mutual fund kind of project. It's will not create the whole project, but it's for learning purpose. I'll create two services. So this is one is user service and one is fund service. So what user can do, like we can create the investor service also, but if we'll create multiple services, it will big, right? So for just learning purpose we can create only 2 3 services. Okay, let's start. So this is user, right? So user may can, like, there are different type of user is there, like investor is also a user, and advisor also an user, right? So user have some username, id, and password, email, and type of user. Here I just forget to mention user type, like either he is a investor or he is a advisor. Okay, and one user have multiple investment and one user have multiple accounts. Like, so I am a investor, right? So I can invest in many funds, right? So that's why one user can have multiple investment. Okay, and one user also have multiple accounts. So multiple accounts means, see, account is nothing but different type of account is there, like IRA account, 529 account, and Roth IRA account. So different account is there, account type is there. So suppose I am a student. Okay, I can buy the fund in 529 account. I can create the 529 account and I can invest, right? So one user can have multiple account type. Okay, and the third thing is, so one user have multiple investor here. So investor is nothing but have user id. Here I make this foreign key, and one investor have one fund, right? So here I am maintaining the fund id here. Okay, then how much an amount I am investing, then initial investment date. So when the first initial investment date, because investor, like, he can invest two ways, either is one time and another is a SIP, like it's, we can say, is recurring, right? So if he will invest in recurring, then either he can pay the money for quarterly, or can annually. Okay, or every month he can pay. So but initial investment date means when he started the investment. Okay, then unit of purchase, how much unit he purchased. Then uh, current investment value, suppose I bought this one on 23, now it's 25. Now how much, suppose initial value is suppose 5000 rupees. So but now the current value is, let's say, 10,000 rupees. That the current investment value is nothing but 10,000. Okay, then fund. So this fund I'll create in fund services, and all these things, user account, investors, I'll create in user services. So in fund services, fund have like fund id, fund name is there, and description, asset type is nothing but either funds in equity or fixed or real estate. Okay, then asset type subcategories, suppose small cap. Suppose I have one fund, and I just wanted to invest in equity. Okay, but equity have different subcategory. One small cap, mid cap, large cap is there. Like, then expense ratio means, like, if you'll go to here, like any fund, any mutual fund. Suppose I'll go to this grow overnight fund. So if we'll check here, see, expense ratio is 0.14%. So this is nothing but the annual percentage fee so charged by the fund manager. Okay. Then current price, market cap, fund manager name, total holding. So all these things will create one by one. So here I'll create two services. One is user services and another is fund services. User service maintain, like create the user here, update the user. Okay, create the user, update the user, get the user details, get all users. Like suppose I am an investor. Okay, I don't want to access the get all user, right? For this user it is accessible by the admins. Okay, not the investor. So here we can do the like purchase fund or sell fund, and in fund service we can create the fund, we can get the fund details, we can get the fund upper fund details also. We can simulate market data, we can get simulate market data. So so in this series we will cover all these things one by one. But before create the microservices, first we have to learn what is microservices and why microservices, how monolithic work before, and what was the problem we faced before in monolithic architecture, so that microservices came. Okay, so all these things we will discuss on next lecture. So thank you. Please subscribe my channel. Hi everyone, welcome to my coding care. So in this previous tutorial, I have explained what's the relation between user and fund. Okay, so how user and account, investor and for fund are in relationship with each other. So we'll create two services like user service, one is fund service. But before creating the microservices, let's learn what is monolithic architecture. So monolithic architecture is nothing but it's a system design pattern. Okay, system design pattern where the components of an application is a one combined code base. Okay, suppose this is one module and this is one more module and this is one more module. Okay, all this module is combined and placed in one application. Okay, one application is nothing but one war file. This is nothing but monolithic architecture. So when we are using monolithic architecture, what's uh, what was the problem we are facing? So let's discuss. Okay, first problem is, okay, what is scaling? Scaling is nothing but like making our system handle more work. Okay, or we are increasing the resource. Suppose this is my application and more and more requests comes into my application. Okay, at the point of time my application not able to handle uh, the request, like it's the burden of the request is increased. Okay, so it deployed one server, so now the burden of the server is high. So at that time we are increasing the capacity of the server. Okay, so server is nothing but one machine. Okay, this is one machine only. Suppose increasing the capacity means there are two ways we can increase. One is vertical scaling, one is vertical scaling and another is horizontal scaling. Okay, vertical scaling means like we are increase the CPU. Okay, suppose I have a computer, this is my computer. Okay, I'm using now 4 GB RAM, 4 GB RAM and 15 12 GB suppose hard drive I'm using. Okay, so later point of time I just wanted to upgrade my system. So I used 16 GB memory and instead of hard drive I'm using 1 TB of SSD. Okay, so now the computer is running fine. Similar kind of thing here also. So we are just increasing the capacity of the same machine. Okay, then second thing is horizontal scaling. Horizontal scaling means instead of increasing the capacity of the machine, we are increasing or we are adding more machine. Suppose already this is one server is there, right? One server is there. Instead of increasing the capacity, we are adding more server. Okay, this more server, this is nothing but horizontal scaling. Suppose for example, you can say like customer care. Okay, so in call center, like if a suppose one employee is there, this is one employee is there. Okay, more number of calls came. Okay, initially he was handling because less number of call was coming, but a later point of time more number of requests came. Okay, he's not able to handle all the requests, right? So the company was decided like either he can increase the capacity of this person. How? Like work time, work one is work time they increase. Okay, second is either we can increase the salary. Okay, so that maybe he will work more time. Okay, then second way is instead of giving more salary and assign more work time, instead of they are hiring more people. Okay, more people. So when the call came, they are distributing the call. The similar kind of thing here also. Horizontal scaling means suppose this is one server, this is one more server, and this is one more server. Okay, now this server has 80% request is processing. Okay, now this is 70%, now this is 30%. Okay, the request came first. The request is not going to here because already burden of the server is there. Instead of going this server, it going to this server. So requests are distributing across the machine. This is nothing but horizontal scaling. Then second thing is slower deployment. Okay, slower deployment and or slower development and deployment. Slower deployment means like if suppose this is one module, this is one more module, and this is one more module. Okay, this all the module is inside one application. Suppose I am changing here. Okay, if one changes I'll done one module, the entire application I have to rebuild again. Okay, I have to retesting again, and I have to redeploying the whole the application. Okay, not just particular module. Okay, if one changes needs to be done in particular module, I have to rebuild, retesting and redeploying the whole application, not a particular module. So this is making slower. Okay, then third thing is tightly coupled. Okay, what is tightly coupled? Suppose uh, when I created this application, I was using Java. Okay, I using Java language I created the application. I just wanted to add some feature in this module, but that that's the feature is available suppose in Python. Okay, Python, but here I can't using Python. This is very limited flexibility is there. Okay, we can say one is limited flexibility. Okay, limited flexibility. Okay, we can't use other language. Okay, or suppose I create changes this module, maybe it will impact to the other module. So this is because of the interdependent. Okay, this is tightly coupled happen. So to these problems, all these problems we can avoid like in when we are using microservices. For is fault tolerance. Okay, fault tolerance. What is fault tolerance? Suppose in this module, sorry, in this application, if one module got failed, Okay, suppose I got something error in this module. Okay, the whole entire application will goes down. Okay, so this is nothing but fault tolerance. Okay, so to avoid these problems we are using microservices. First, scalability, then second, slow development. Okay, slow development. Third is tightly coupled. Okay, tightly coupled. Then fourth is fault tolerance. Fault tolerance. Then next is limited flexibility. Okay, these problems we are facing when we are using monolithic architecture. So how we are overcome this problem? Okay, instead of keeping all the modules in one application, we can create separate service. Suppose this service, okay, this service is doing authentication kind of work. Okay, and this service is handling notification. Okay, notification, so we can call as like notification service, and this is something like payment related service. Okay, payment related service. So this so all the services are hosted in different server. This hosted in one server, this hosted in different server, this hosted in one more server. Okay, one more server. Here if one of the service will fail, then the application is running. Okay, because it is not dependent on all the application, right? In microservices we see so many advantages is there, like scalability, flexibility, fault tolerance, then improve, it will improve the productivity also. Okay, but what's the disadvantages if we are using the microservices? Okay, first disadvantages is like complexity. What is complexity? Okay, what is complexity? Okay, in monolithic architecture all the module is one application. Okay, when we are deploying, that is only one server we are deploying. I can manage, but thing is here different service is there. Okay, and all the service is hosted in different server. Okay, different server. So the managing multiple service is a tedious job. So managing these multiple services, it increases the system complexity. Okay, then second thing is data management. Why data management? Because see, data management, suppose here in monolithic architecture all the module they are using one database. Okay, then all the data are storing or retrieving from only one database. But here maybe this service is using different database. Okay, maybe this service using different database, and okay, each service has different database. So ensuring the data also consistency across the services, this is a very challenging task in microservices. Okay, then third thing is deployment overhead. Deployment overhead is nothing but after all the services we have to testing, versioning, and we can say like dependency management become, it's more complex. So this is the basic things we can get more complex in microservices. Okay, but now question is, why do we use microservices? Okay, suppose my application is very small application. Okay, this is very small application, and I can satisfied with 1 db, and the number of requests also very less. In that cases I can use monolithic architecture, it's easy. Okay, but when we are using microservices, suppose in my application is a big application like Flipkart. Okay, Flipkart or Amazon. So this is a big application. So at that cases we can use microservices. That is not an issue. But for a very small application, we can use monolithic architecture. Okay, so in this video I just covered like what is microservices, what is monolithic architecture, what is scaling, and how we are avoid what's the disadvantages also we are facing in microservices. Okay, now on the next lecture I'll create the microservices. Okay, I'll create one user service and one is fund service. Okay, so these two microservices will create on next videos. If you don't subscribe my channel, please subscribe. Yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome to my coding here. In the previous tutorial, we discussed about what is microservices and why microservices, and also we discussed about what is monolithic architecture and what was the problem we are facing in monolithic architecture, and also we discussed about vertical scaling and horizontal scaling. So these things we have discussed in previous video. If you do not watch it, please go through the first. Then today we will discuss how to create a REST API. But before creating the REST API, the prerequisite should be Spring Boot. You have to know the Spring Boot, then only you can create the REST API. Okay, so today I'll create one two services, like right, one is user service and another is font service. Okay, let's get started. So this is my Spring tool suite. Here creating new project, and I'll create two service. One is user service. Okay, let's package is com.coding here dot user service. Fine. Then type is Maven. So if you want Gradle, then you can use Gradle. Okay, now I am using Maven, and Java 17 I am using. Then next. Then here, if you see here, the Spring Boot version I am using latest one, 3.4.1. Okay, so what's the dependency we need? The first dependency we need is Spring Web. Okay, Spring Web, this one. This is the first dependency we required. Then next, then finish it. So here our project is created. Now there are so many packages is there. Basically we are writing the code in src packages, and in src test java we will write our test cases, and in resource folder we are write our configuration, like here application.properties is there, right? So if you know the Spring Boot, you know all these things. Okay, so let's create one Spring Boot application here. In this package already user service application is there. Okay, so when we can, so when we will run this application, by default it will run on 8080 port number. So before that I just wanted to change the port number also. Okay, that one we'll do later. First we'll create the API. So first I'll create some packages, like one is controller package, service, service, then repository. Okay, then entity package. So when the request will come, first the request comes to this controller. Okay, so in this controller I have created one sample class, like this is user, right? So user controller, user controller. So we'll make it as at the rate rest controller. We have to make this annotation. Basically this annotation is the combination of at the rate response body and at the rate controller. Suppose I'll create one method like public. Okay, so it is returning some string value, let's say, and this is something like a get user. Okay, get user. So for now we have not connecting our database. So for now just I am just hard coding. Okay, return some name like hello world. Okay, so but this is which kind of request, like it's a get request or post request, we have to mention. That's why we are using at the rate get mapping. This get mapping is nothing but request type is get method. Okay, so in this get mapping annotation here we can mention the url. Okay, slash suppose get user. Okay, so when we'll call this API, so we have to pass this as a URL, then only this API will call. One more mapping is there, we can use that in class level, like at the rate request mapping, and we here we can mention like slash this is user. Okay, so why I am doing two times mapping? Because suppose in this controller I have one more controller is there. Okay, suppose let's say one more class is there, address controller. Okay, address controller. In this address controller also uh, at the rate request map instead at the rate rest controller, and here also same method is there. Okay, method same method is there. So if we'll comment this part, okay, I'm commenting this part, then here address controller also same method, and user controller have a same method, and URI also same URI. So when we'll send the request, it will confuse like where I'll go. To avoid that kind of problem, we are using this annotation at the rate request mapping. In class level annotation we are using. Okay, clear? If we can't use, suppose just now I'm just removing this one. Okay, okay, then I'll run. So directly you can select this project, then run as Spring Boot app. See here it has started. If you'll see here, Tomcat started as 8080. Okay, so if you'll go here, localhost 8080 slash, what is the URL you gave here? This is slash get user. Same, just copy paste. When I'll hit the hello world come. Okay, now what I am doing, instead of here I just uncommented this one. Okay, now I am rerunning this application. Now if you will hit this one, it will not work because the mapping has not done properly. So first we have to use this one slash user, then slash get user. So this is the one services we create now. And one more thing, here the default port number is 8080. If I want to change the port number, then go to this properties file in the resource folder, and in this properties file, like we can mention port server.port. Suppose I am running on 9090. Okay, now restart the server. Now if you'll go here, it will not work because the localhost refused to connect. Okay, instead of 9090 I make it as sorry, instead of 8080 I'm making as 9090. Now hello welcome. Okay, this is one REST service. Okay, so I'll create one more service like fun service. Okay, similarly file, new Spring starter project, fund service. Okay, so here I am making as fund service also. Okay, same 11 Java 17. Then next here we'll use Spring Web. Okay, then next, then finish. Now fund service also created. In fund service similarly I'll create packages. This is the controller package. Then okay, so in the controller package I just create one class. It is one controller class. Then here I'll make as at the rate rest controller, then at the rate request mapping. This is fund service, right? We can make mention its fund. Okay, slash fund. Now I'll create one simple API like public string get fund name. Okay, here okay I just return one fund name. Suppose Bank of India small cap fund. Okay, then I'll this is get request, right? At the rate get mapping get fund name. Okay, now if I'll run this one, it will run on 8080 port number. Okay, default is 8080. Now I just wanted to call this API, so localhost, instead of user I can make it as fund slash get fund. Okay, this get fund name. Okay, now it's come. So in this way we can create the multiple services or REST API. Okay, so we can is nothing but one API. So in this similar like in controller many APIs is there, so in one services can have many APIs. Okay, so in this way we are creating our microservices. Okay, so in the next video I'll come up with how to integrate it with database like MySQL or Oracle. Thank you guys. Please watch my videos and subscribe. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Coding Care. In the previous video, I had discussed how to create the REST APIs. So today we will discuss how to integrate the database and how we will work with Spring Data API in this video. Okay, let's get started. In STS, we will create two services, right? One is user service, one is fund service. So let's create one more time. So this is user service. Okay, and this is Maven Java 17. Next. Now we add dependency, Spring, Web. Okay, and the second thing is now we have to connect with database. So I am using MySQL, so we need the driver, right, to connect with Java to database. So we need MySQL driver. MySQL, this MySQL driver required. Then second thing is we need Spring Data API. Data API. Then next finish. So now user service project is ready. Now we'll create packages. one is controller package. Here in controller class I'll create one class which is user controller, and I'll make it as annotation at the rate rest controller and at the rate request mapping with slash user. Okay, so here mm, yesterday I had created one API like public string get user name. Okay, so here return some hard code value. Okay, hello world. Now this is get request, so we are using at the rate get mapping, and here we are using the path like slash use get username. Okay, so the default port number is 8080. I am just changing the port number. Port server dot port, this is 9090 I am running. Yeah, let's run this application. So here we are getting the application failed to start because we have added MySQL related driver. Okay, but we have not configured yet. So let's configure here. So I have already written the code here. I just copy paste. So to connect with database, first thing is we need URL, right? This is my URL, and this is 3306 is nothing but port number. So in this port number my MySQL is running, and this is database name. Next, username is root and password is password. Okay, now we will run this application. Yeah, now fine. Now the server started at 9090. Let's check localhost 9090 slash get username. See, hello world came. Now our application is ready. So now we will create our entity class. So in my first video I discussed like how user and investor and account has relationship with each other. Okay, so in here instead of investor I'll make it as this one investment. Okay, so one user have uh, list of investment. Okay, and one user also have list of account. Okay, so first I'll create user entity class. So let's create user entity class. So in entity package I'll create user, and user have private and user id, right? Private string user name, private string password, then email, private string email, then list of investment. Okay, so private list of investment, investments, then private list of account, accounts. So let's create the investment also. Create class investment and account class also. In users, so I'll make it as at the rate entity class, and this user id is my primary key, so I'll make this one at the rate id, then at the rate generated value stat is equal to generation type dot identity. So purpose of this generation type, like this annotation actually is used to specify the key generator, like how our primary key is generating. So identity means this, it indicates, this identity means it indicates like the database will handle the generation of the primary key, right? So like it's an in my, I'm using MySQL, right? So it will be auto increment. Okay, the next thing is, so here I'll make the relationship, right? One user have many investments, so at the rate 1 to many, and I am using cascade equal to cascade type dot all. So what is cascade and how we are doing relationship, I'll make this one a separated video. Just think that this cascade in JPA means when we perform the operation like saving operation or updating operation or delete operation on parent entity, all those operations are automatically applied in also child entity, right? Suppose this is user, this is parent entity, and this is account is child entity. Whatever I will do operation on top of the parent entity like user entity, it will be apply for account also. That the main purpose of this cascade. Okay, there are different cascade is there, like persist, merge, detach, all. So I will make this one as separated video. Okay, at the rate join column, and I am mentioning is name equal to user id. Okay, this is the, this id will generate inside in investment. Okay, similarly here also same thing. Okay, now user entity has ready. Now we'll create the investment. So investment here in back is entity class. Okay, then private int, this is investment, right? Investment id and fund id, then private double amount, private date, right? Investment date. So investment date we are using date, but this is sql dot java dot sql I am importing. Okay, date, investment date, units of purchased. Okay, this is integer. Okay, that's it, right? Current investment value, private double current investment value. Okay, now this is my primary key at the rate id. Okay, I just copy pasted from here. Okay, similarly we have account class also. So in user we did not created the getter and setter method yet, so let's generate the getter and setter. Research, generate getter and setter, select all, generate, and I'll create the to string also. Okay, now the entity class is ready. One user have multiple investment and multiple accounts. This is investment entity class and this is account entity class. Now the entity class is ready. Okay, here first thing we will create one API which is save the user information. Okay, so public save user info. Okay, and this will take the user information related. So at the rate request body, then user. Okay, here so this will return also in user. Okay, so I'll just import it. Okay, now return null. Okay, now here I will make it as at the rate, this is post request, right? So this is, we'll use post mapping. In post mapping here I'll give the URL like save user. Okay, save user. Now API is ready. So first the request comes to the controller class, right? So here first the request come to this. Okay, controller, this is controller class, and now the request will go to the service class. This controller class will call the service class. This is service class, and now the service will call to the repository class, repo. Okay, this one. So basically in controller it will handle all the requests. First the request will come, and this one will delegates the request to the service class. Basically in the service we are writing the business logic here, and in the repository we are writing the database related logic here. Okay, so here I will create the service class in service packages. So I will create user service, user service. So here I will make it as at the rate service. Okay, now this controller class will call to service class. How will inject this service one? I will use user service. Okay, user service. So I will make it as at the rate auto. I am doing field injection. Okay, now this user service here, user service dot save user info. I'll call the method of save user info method of the user service by passing user. Okay, so I'll create the method, in here. So public, it's returning user object. Okay, now this service will call to the repository class. Okay, so I'll make it as repository, but I'll not make it this class because this is interface. So user repo, and this is extends from JPA repository. Basically this JPA repository have given by the Spring Data JPA. So in this, so it have so many inbuilt method. Okay, we just extend this interface and we will call the method. So first this parameter is nothing but the class name, like on which class it will do the operation. First is user class. Okay, this is user class, and what's the primary key of this user? In the user the primary key is user ID, right? So the type is int, so here we will mention is integer. Okay, this is integer. Now it's done. Now in service class I'll inject this user repo, right? So user repo, so I'm injecting as at the rate auto air. Now the user repo dot save up by, I'll pass this user object. Okay, so it will return user saved user. Okay, So I'll return this one, return saved user. Okay, that's done. Now I'll go to the controller class. So it will also, I can directly return this one. Okay, return this one. So here instead of returning user directly, I can returning response entity of user. So instead of returning here, I just assigning this is save user info, then return new response entity of we can pass like save user info comma http status dot okay. Okay, now this is done. Now the request will come to this API. We're passing this user request, then this will call to this method save user info, and this save user info will call this user repository by passing this user object. Okay, then it will save the data to the database. It will return to the controller class, and the controller will return to the client. Okay, so let's start this application. Okay, now we'll check just in MySQL schema user, just refresh all. See here user investment and account investment and user created. So now we'll try to save the user information. Okay, the first time user doesn't have any investment and doesn't have any account. Okay, so we'll pass only username and email and password. Just now we'll send the password in string format. Later when we'll implement the security, how we'll encrypted, all these things I'll describe later. Okay, now our API is ready. Now how we'll send the request? One postman is there. Through the postman we can send the request to here. Okay, so open postman, and here I just create one collection first. Let's say this is collection is user collection. Okay, and this is user. Okay, I'll add one request here, save user info. Okay, and this is post request. This is local host, right? So this one localhost 9090 slash user, then slash, this is the API name. Okay, now in body select the rows, then JSON. In JSON now we'll pass this username, password and email. This user ID will automatically created by the database. So now I will pass the username here, username, let's say Raj, then password, right? This password Raj123, then email. Okay, email is, let's say raj123@gmail.com. So here we are not validating now, that one we'll do later. Okay, now we'll pass these things only. Okay, let's send the request. First clear the console here. I'm just clearing the console. See, now it's 200. So user ID is 1, username Raj, password this, email this, investment null and accounts is null. So first time account and investment is null. Okay, so user has created now. So I'll create two APIs. So one is save account information and save investment. So here I'll create two more APIs. One is save mm, save account or create account. Okay, this is fine. Create account. Okay, and I'll take as account as request body. Account as request body. This is account. And the thing is, first what I'll do, uh, we'll pass the account as well as the user ID, right? So I'll pass the user ID also. This is string user ID. Okay, how will pass this user ID? So I'm using path variable here. Okay, user ID. So we'll pass the user ID. Suppose I'll pass 1. So this one will store into this variable. Okay, so that's why I'm using @path variable string. Okay, this is I'm passing user ID. First I'll check whether the user ID is available or not. If it is available, then I'll append this account number, set this account to this particular user. Okay, so here I'll call this user service dot create account. Okay, I'll make this one also create account. Then here I'll pass user ID, and second one is account. Okay, so it will return. Okay, first let's create this method. So this will return also user. Okay, so user ID came here. I'll call this repository, right? User repo. First I'll check whether this user is available or not. User repo dot find by. Okay, dot find by id, find by id by passing user id. But thing is, user id is a integer, but we are passing string, so I'll make it as converted to integer. So integer dot percent of user id, and here I'll returning, okay, user. Now user came. So if user dot is present then only I am reading the data, right? User dot get. Okay, so this one will return the user object. So I'll make this one, this is something. Okay, this is user available user. Okay, present user. Okay, present user. Okay, then what I'll do, once it will available, then I will append this account, or I'll set this account into this user, right? So here present user dot set accounts, this required list of account, right? List dot, okay, list dot of, I'm passing this account. Okay, now it's ready. Now same object I can save again. So here instead of this one I will make this one as global variable. Okay, equal to null, then this one. Okay, now what I'll do, present, sorry, I'll call this user repo, right? User repo dot save of present user, then it will return. Directly I can do return statement. Okay, so first I'll check whether this user ID is available or not. Okay, if it is available, I'm just getting the user and set this account here. Then again I will save it. Okay, so this controller will passing this one and it will return user object, right? So instead of save user info, I'll make it as user then status. Okay, okay, now it's ready. So we'll pass this user id and request body is account information. Okay, so restart my application. Okay, restarted. So here I'll create, just duplicate this API, and here this is create account. Okay, so this is also post request, and the localhost user slash the URL is this one, create account, as well as I'll pass the account ID. So already account ID created, right, for this one. So user ID. So user ID is one, right? For this user ID I am creating one account. Okay, this body row and JSON related selected. Here in account, if we go to account, we need account IDs automatically will generate, then balance, account type, then create date. Okay, suppose this account type is, okay, just copy paste, account type is IR account. Okay, IR account, then balance, let's say this is something 2000 3 4. Okay, then created date. Now the created date is, like, suppose I am passing today's date, right? 18 Jan 2025. Now the request body is created. Now I'll send the request. Okay, we are getting port 005. So if you'll check the console result, JSON parse error cannot deserialize value of type SQL date of string. Okay, so we are passing the SQL date is here, like this is DDMMYY, but here we have not mentioned in account. We just created this date, but we have not mentioned which type of uh, format it will take. So here we can make it as like at the rate JSON format, and we can make it as shape, like shape equal to shape class shape dot string comma pattern equal to, suppose I am doing dt mmyyyy. So here I have made this shape dot string. That means this ensure this field, okay, this field should be represented as string in JSON format, so that when it will come, so this value, this ddmmy, this should be JSON format. Okay, so now I'll restart that server. I'll try again. Okay, send the request. Yeah, now it's 500. Okay, let's check. Okay, unsupported operation exception null, immutable collection. Okay, maybe here in service class I have used list dot account. Okay, instead of creating list of account, I can create list of account. Here accounts equal to new array list. Okay, then here I can add this accounts. Okay, this accounts. Okay, here I can add accounts dot add of account. then I'll send this list here. Okay, restart again. Okay, now it should be fine. Yeah, so now user ID is one, username this one, email is this one. So in this user ID have, this is the account information. Okay, so similarly also we can create the investment. Okay, we'll create one more API. Similar kind of thing in controller class, like create one more API is, this is something create investment. Okay, create investment. Okay, similarly I will pass the user ID as well as request body is investment. Okay, investment, investment, and here I will pass investment instead of create account. This is create investment. Okay, this is also same name. Okay, now I'll create this method. Okay, create method, create account string investment. Okay, this one. So this will return user and string user ID investment. Okay, similar kind of thing I'll do. First, what I'll do, first I'll do user repo dot find by id. Okay, this I'll pass here integer dot percent of user id. First what I am doing, I'll read the user information. Okay, this is user information by passing this user id. Now I'll check if user dot is present, then only I am doing operation. Okay, so again I'll same, this is present user, and here I can make present user dot get, sorry, present user equal to user dot get. Okay, now the user is available. Okay, now what I'll do is same thing, right? So here I'll create a list. What list of, instead of list of account, this is list of investment. Okay, investment. So now here mm, here present user dot set investment, I'm passing this investments, right? list of list of list of investment, this one I'll pass here. Okay, copy paste, but here I have not added the list investment, right? So list of investment dot add of investment. Okay, now it's done. Now I'll save, return user repo dot save of present user. Okay, now it's done. Now I will go to controller class, it's returning user. Yeah, it's correct. Okay, now it's done. I'll just restart my, maybe it will come same error like in investment also have date. Okay, so similar kind of thing in account, what we did same we did for investment. Now it's ready. Yeah, okay, it's created. Yeah, now just I'll create one more API here and duplicate. Okay, now this one create investment. Okay, here instead of create account, this is create investment. I am passing same one, this is one, and required body, this is row. Okay, and this here investment, if you'll see here, we need fund id. Okay, so but now we don't have any fund. Okay, for now I'm passing any fund, otherwise I just fund id one I'm passing. Okay, investment id will automatically created, I'm passing fund id, but now we have not created the fund services. Okay, so the fund id is, let's say, 1. Fund id is 1. Okay, then amount I wanted to invest, let's say this 2000 rupees. Okay, investment date, this one, true. Here thing is, unit of purchase we can't pass because this one will calculate on backend, because see, and unit of purchase also I make it as I think it's integer. Investment in, yeah, it's integer, it should be double, because here units of purchased will calculate by net amount divided by net asset value. Suppose amount I am passing 2000. Okay, suppose the net asset value is 1000 rupees, then unit of purchase is 2. Okay, so this one we should not be passed here, it will calculate by backend. Okay, now a thing is how we'll calculate, so unit of purchase like net asset value, so that one we have to create the fund service first, then only we can create this one. For learning purpose, just I am sending fund id. Okay, and amount, and also current investment value also we need to calculate on backend. Okay, the how the current investment value will calculate, like it's a product of unit of purchase and net current net asset value. Okay, this one also we need, no need to pass. Okay, just send this one. Okay, yeah, now it's created accounts, this is investment id, this one, fund id, this one, amount, this one, unit of purchase and current investment, this is 00, because basically we have to calculate this one. Okay, so we need to call this fund services based on the fund id. We need to fetch the fund details and we'll calculate these two things. Okay, so when the fund service I'll create, then I'll do all these stuffs. Okay, we create the user service now. So in the next video we'll create the fund services, then user service and fund service is different. So here unit of purchase is 0, this one is 0, so you need to calculate this one, right, based on the fund information. So I'll pass the fund id to the fund services. Okay, and I'll get the information and I'll calculate these two field. So how we'll connect two services, I'll discuss next videos. Okay, thank you guys. If you have any queries, then please comment, and please share and subscribe. Yeah. Thank you everyone. Hi everyone, in the previous video I had discussed how to create the user services. Okay, so in this user service, in user controller I have created 3 APIs. One is save user, create account and create investment. But for the create investment we need fund information. Okay, so here in create account, in this investment, here fund id is there, but I don't know the fund id, right? So first we have to create the fund in fund services, then we'll call based on the fund id we'll call this fund services. Okay, so this is the fund services, based on the fund id I'll call this fund services and I'll get the data and I'll calculate these two things, unit of purchase and current investment value. Okay, so before the start, if you do not have subscribed my channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Let's get started. So here this is my fund services. In this fund services I have created the controller package, entity package, repository package, and service packages. And here in pom.xml, I have added this dependency. One is Spring Data API, and this is Spring Boot Starter Web, and this is MySQL related. Okay, so let's configure the MySQL related. So I'll go to the properties file here, and here I'll connect to the DB. Right, so we need user database information, right? URL, username, password. So in this user services we already created, right, in the application.properties file. Just copy this one and paste it. Okay, now first I'll create the fund class. Okay, so new class, this is fund. So fund at the rate entity. So fund have some fund id, private int fund id, private string fund name, private string description, private string asset type, private string asset type sub category, private double expense expense ratio, private double nab, this is net asset value. Okay, nab. So I'll create setter and getter method, select all, generate, as well as I am creating the toString. Okay, here I'll make this one as primary key at the rate id and at the rate generated value stat is equal to generation type dot identity. Now our entity class is ready. Now we will create the controller class. Here I'll create one class. This is fun controller, and I'll make it as at the rate rest controller, and this is at the rate request mapping. This is fund, right? So slash fund. Now I'll create one API to save the fund. First I'll create the post mapping. Okay, so public fund, it will return fund, then create fund. Okay, here I'll take the request body as fund at the rate request body, this is fund. Okay, so here let's import. Now what I'll do, I'll call the JPA to save this fund into the fund table. Okay, so first I'll create service class and then repository interface. So first create the service class, let's say fund service, this is fund service, and make it as at the rate service, this is stereotype annotation, and here I'll inject this fund service to the controller class. Let's say fund service. Okay, I'm using at the rate field injection, then I'll call this fund service dot create fund by passing fund. Okay, now I'll create this method in fund service class. So this is public, it will return fund. Okay, this is create fund, fine. Yeah, now I'll call the repository, right? So first let's create the repository interface, this is fund repo, Now this should be extends from JPA repository. Here I will pass the entity class name, right? Fund, and this is ID, as ID is nothing but primary key type, right? So this is fund ID, type is integer. Okay, so here I will mention this is integer. Okay, now repository done. In service class I will inject the repository fund. So here I will make this one as @repository. Okay, this one fund repo, fund repo, and inject @auto add. Now I'll call directly, I am returning, okay, returning fund repo dot save of fund. Okay, here in controller class, okay, this one it will return fund saved fund. Okay, so here I'll return new response entity of fund saved fund, comma http status dot. Okay, instead of returning fund I will returning response entity of fund. Okay, now it's done. So this is post mapping. The URL is like /create fund. Okay, now it's ready. Let's run the application. Okay, application started on 8080. I'm doing one thing here in properties file, server.port I'm mentioning 9091. Okay, so now just restart the server. Okay, this is 9091. Okay, then how to send the request to here? So in postman I'll create one collection. Okay, new collection. This is fund service. I'll add one request which is post request, and this is create fund. URL is this is 9091. This is fund and create fund. In body I'll choose row in JSON. In JSON I have to give the this data fund information. This fund ID will generate automatically. I'll pass this fund name. Now our request body is done, so we'll send the request. Now fund name is Bank of India. Description, this one. Asset type, this is equity, and asset type subcategory is small cap. Expense ratio is 1.35%. then NAV is 123 rupees. Okay, net asset value. So I'll send the request. Okay, I'm getting the response. Now one fund has created. So how to get the fund information? So here I'll create one more APIs in fund controller. So this is get mapping, just copy paste, and this is @get mapping and get fund by ID. Okay, or get, okay, this is get fund by ID. Instead of this one I'm passing fund ID. Okay, so I'm using path variable. This is fund ID, and here @path variable, string fund ID. Okay, I'll pass this one. This is get fund. Okay, this is also get fund by passing fund ID. So here it will also return the same fund object. Let's create the method in service public fund. So this one, our fund ID is integer, right? This is integer, so I'll make convert to string to integer. So here fund repo dot find by ID by passing integer dot percent of fund id. Okay, and directly I am returning this one. Okay, this will return a optional of fund. So this is fund. Okay, so I'll if fund dot is present, then only I am returning this one. Okay, I'll make this one variable like fund info equal to null. Then here I can make fund equal to info fund info equal to fund dot get. Okay, so I just returning this one, return fund info. Now this controller also ready. I'll just hit this API. Okay, just restart the server. Okay, now fine. So I'll create one more here, just duplicate this API. This is get fund. Okay, this is 9091 fund. Instead of create fund, is get fund by id, and here I'll pass 1. The fund id already it's 1 right here. Okay, passing 1. This is 4045. This is get request, right? Get mapping, get fund. Okay, I just missed something, need to give one class. Okay, restart the server again, send. Yeah, now so this fund id 1 has this information. Okay, now our two services is completed. Here user service is completed and fund service completed. So in the next video I will tell how we'll call this API, this fund get fund API from the user services. Okay, so we'll use WebClient. Okay, thank you everyone, we'll see on next video.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Coding Care. Today we will discuss one of the microservice concept called inter-service communication. So if you do not have subscribed my channel, please subscribe and share. Okay, let's get started. Suppose I have two services. One is user service and this is fund service. Okay, this is user service and this is fund service. So in fund services one API is there called get fund info. If we will pass the fund ID, we can get the fund information. So in user, I am a user. Okay, I am an investor. I wanted to invest on one of the fund. So in user service there is no fund information. Fund information is available inside fund services, but user wants to invest. How he will invest without fund? That's why the user service will call to the fund service to get the fund information. So this is my fund services and this is my user services. In fund services I have one API called get fund. So if I'll call this API, I'll get the fund information. Let's run this application. Okay, application started on 9091. Just test it. This is the API localhost 9091 fund get fund by ID v1. Now I got the fund information. Okay, similarly we have user services. So this is my user services, and user services have also one controller. Okay, here one API is there called create investment. Okay, so I'll pass the user ID and as well as I'll pass investment. Okay, if I'll go to investment, I'll pass the fund ID, and this investment ID will automatically created, and will pass fund ID, and then amount will pass, then investment date, then these two things. Okay, unit of purchase, this one will not pass because Based on the net asset value, we will calculate these two fields. Is it clear? This is user service and this is fund services. The user services wants to connect to the fund services, okay, and then fund services will give the response to the user services, and in user services I'll write the logic according the data, right? Then how, the question is how we are call one service to another service. We can use web client. So the web client is a tool which is provided by the Spring Boot. So using this web client, we can make the HTTP request to the other web services. So web client is nothing but is a part of reactive programming model. Okay. So basically, what is blocking and non-blocking means? Blocking is nothing but, suppose this is one thread and the request came. Okay. When the request came, this thread now it's occupied. Okay. It's not a free. Then the request will go for processing. Here suppose processing is happening, so while the processing the request, still it is not free. Okay, once the response will come, then the thread will response back to the client, then only it will be free, then only it can receive the next request. Okay, but this is synchronous, but the asynchronous is, suppose this is one thread, okay, and while the request came and it will go for the processing, when the request will processing here, okay, so until here what happened, until the processing the request, it will be wait, okay, but here it will be free. Okay, this will be free. Once the response will back, then it will come, so it will like it's a notification. Okay, once the response will come, it will be notified. Okay, then the response will back to the client. So this is nothing but asynchronous communication. Okay, now the thing is how we are using the web client. The first step is we have to add the dependency. Which dependency? Webflux. This webflux is a reactive programming, when we are creating the reactive programming we can use. So basically the main thing is, first we have to add the dependency for webflux dependency, then we can create the bin, we can register the bin of the web client object. Okay, this is web client. Okay, first thing is we'll add the dependency of webflux. So let's go to our project. Here central maven, webflux, spring webflux. Okay, this is spring boot starter webflux. Yeah, this one 3.4.1 I am using. Copy, and here in pom.xml, here I'll add the dependency. Okay, version is not required, we are already using 3.4.1. yes, it is not required, we can remove this one. Okay, now webflux dependency added. Now we'll create the web client object. So we'll create one configuration packages here, dot config package, and here we'll create one class called web client config. So make it as @configuration. Okay, now here we'll create the object of web client, public web client get web client. Okay, web client dot builder, then builder. Okay, so this is my parameter, and here I can use it directly, return builder dot build method. Okay, so make it as bin. I'll go to the user controller class. So here in user controller for this API I'll call the fund services API, right? So inside create account, this is the service. Here I'll call the fund services. Okay, so here first inject the web client. So web client then I'm using field injection @auto add. Okay, now it's ready. Now I'll call the method of this fund services, this one. Okay, this API I'll call. So in user controller I am passing the investment information. Okay, and in create account when I'll click this one, first what I am doing, first I am checking here find by ID whether this user is available or not. If it is available, then I just set this investment. Okay, but instead of setting before, what I'll do, if it is present, first thing is I'll call the fund services API. Okay, here I'll call fund service API. Okay, so here how I will call, using web client. So web client dot, so this is get request, right? If you will check here, this is get request. So web client dot get, okay, here dot URI, we need to mention the URI. Okay, so this URI directly I can pass here inside double quote. Instead of passing one hard code, I'll pass here fund ID. Okay, this is investment. From the investment I can get the fund ID, right? Investment dot get fund ID. Okay, now after setting the URI, I will send the request. To send the request, we'll use retrieve method. Retrieve. Then after retrieve, to get the data. After retrieve, I need the data, right? So we are using body to mono. So it will return one string. Suppose I'll make it a string dot class. So it will return the mono of string, but I'll make it as block. I'm not doing asynchronous here, so I'm using synchronous. Okay, so I just make it as block. So it will return a string value. Okay, string, suppose data. So this is whose data? This is fund information. Okay, fund info. Now the fund info came. So see directly, so before this fund info will you just, I'm just printing here system.out.println fund info. Okay, so here I just restart the server. Okay, this has not started yet, so let's start the server. Yeah, it's done, I think. Yeah, it's done. Now I'll send the request. So this is user services and this is the API create investment. Okay, this is the API create investment. I'm passing user ID, and here I'm passing fund ID is 1, because if you check in fund ID already 1 is there, that's why I'm passing 1 here. Okay, I'm sending. Now we are getting the data. So this one we are getting because of we are hard coding here. Okay, so in the services, use services, here whatever we are passing, this whatever we are passing, same one I am returning. But this one, this two field is 0 0. Okay, so I'll just check the log here. See, fund ID is 1, fund name is this one. Okay, and just make it is bigger. Fund ID 1, fund name is Bank of India something. This is fund name and this is description. Okay, and this is asset type is equity, asset type subcategory is small cap, and expense ratio this one. All these things came, but this is a string format. Okay, so I'll convert to fund class, right? I'll convert to class. So how to convert this string to object? So I can use the object mapper, correct? So I am using object mapper. Okay, so auto add. Okay, now in mapper dot read value. Okay, so here I'll pass the string, this one, this is fund info. Okay, I'll pass this string and I'll convert this string to that particular class. So I have to create one class here. I'll create one package called DTO package dot DTO. Okay, so here I'll create one fund class fund. Okay, so in the fund class we can create all the variables whatever inside in fund services. In fund services, this is entity class, this is fund.java, right? So all this one we can create here. Okay, in this fund.java. So this is available inside user service, not funds. Okay, so I'll create getter and setter. Okay, now ready. Now I'll convert this string to this fund class. Okay, so here I'll mention this fund. Okay, fund. Okay, dot fund dot class. So why it's giving error? Maybe we need to throws the exception. Okay, add throws declaration. Okay, now it will return fund. Okay, this is fund object. Now just sys out fund. Okay, just rerun the application. Oh, why it's giving error is there? Okay, it should be throws the exception. Okay, now restart the server one more time. Here I'll send the request. Okay, 200. If I'll check here, this is font object, this is a string. Okay, this is a string, but this one is font. Okay, now one more way is there. Instead of using object mapper, also we can achieve the same functionalities. Like we no need to use this mapper, just this one also not required. Instead of here body to mono string dot class, I'll mention fun dot class. Okay, this is fun dot class, and this one will return font. Okay, so this one also work. Now clear the console. Now send the request. Okay, we'll check here. See, this is a font object. Okay, so now we can achieve this one. Inside body to mono we can mention the fund, so directly it is deserializing here. Okay, so this way we can call one services to another services. How we'll calculate this two field, unit of purchase and current investment value. The unit of purchase is calculated amount divided by net asset value. Where we'll get the net asset value? Net asset value we can get from here in front information. Okay, so investment dot set of unit of purchase equal to investment dot get amount divided by fund info dot get net asset value. So we can get this one, but here investment dot set, this one I have made, this one is integer. Yeah, this is set of purchase, this is unit of purchase, this is integer, so make it as double. Okay, now here I set this unit of purchase, right? Now I'll set investment dot set of current investment value. How we'll calculate this one? Will unit of purchase. Okay, investment dot get units of purchased. Okay, into net asset value. This is fund info dot get nep. Okay, now it's done. If you'll see here, this is the first initial investment, right? So here unit of purchase is 0. Now I am setting this unit of purchase, but if you'll see here, I am directly setting this one as unit of purchase into this net price. Unit of purchase is 0, right? 0 into net price, it will be 0. That's why what we'll do, we'll create one variable which can store, okay, which can store the unit of purchased. Okay, double unit of purchased equal to this one, and here I can pass unit of purchased, and here instead of investment dot this one we can get write like unit of purchased. Okay, it's done. Now let's restart the server. Now if we'll check here, this is 0 and 0.0, right? Now if I'll send, see, okay, now the current investment value is this one. So in this way we can call one services with another services. This is called inter-service communication using web client. If you have any question, please let me know in comment section. I'll reply. In the next video, I'll tell how we are register our service into the service registry. Okay. In the next lecture, I'll discuss the service registry. Okay. Thank you everyone. Hi everyone. Welcome to my channel Coding Care. Today I'll discuss one of the microservice concept called inter-service communication. So in my previous video, I have already explained the inter-service communication, but that is using web client. Okay, but today I will show how to connect with another services using REST template. So I have already discussed in my previous video what's the difference between REST template and web client. If you do not have watched it, please go for the previous video once, then come to here. Or if you want to use the REST template direct, then it's fine, you can watch this video. But if you want to know what's the difference between REST template and web client, please go to my previous video once. So let's get started. So here one is user service is there, one is phone service is there. In user services I have created one controller. Inside controller one create investment API is there. Inside this API one create account is there. Here I call the fund information by passing the fund ID. Then I get the fund information. After getting the fund information, I calculate these two fields, set unit of purchase and current investment, right? But this is using web client. If you see here, I use web client. Okay, but today I'll discuss how to connect with same API or how I call this API using the REST template. Okay, let's get started. First let me comment this one. Okay, I am commenting this web client, and here also I will commenting this line. Now what I'll do, first we need REST template object, right? So in this config web client config, I have already configuration the web client object. So let me comment this one. Now I'll create the REST template object. How I'll create? Public REST template, then return new REST template. Right now my method is created, make it as bin. Okay, now I'll auto add this REST template. Okay, so here REST template. So here I'll use auto add for field injection, then I'll call this REST template here. Then REST template dot, suppose in web client what I was doing, this was get mapping, right? So I call this get method, then dot URI section I mention the URI. But here in REST template one method called get for object. So we are using get method, that's why we are calling this method get method. And first one is nothing but URL. Suppose this is my URL, string URL equal to, okay, this is my URL, right? HTTP, this one. I just mention the URL here. Okay, now URL is ready. Here I pass the URL. Now the second is I can mention this is string. Okay, string dot class, it will return string object. Okay, so this is string, this is code, so response it will give. Okay, response. Now what I will do here, if I'll print this out, the response. So it will print the string value, but this is string, right? How I'll convert this object? We can use object mapper. Last time we used the object mapper, right? So to convert this string to object, we need object mapper class, right? Object mapper, object mapper, then I'll inject this one. Okay, now here what I'll do, in object mapper, okay, remove this one. Object mapper dot read value, one method is there. Inside there we need to pass the response. This is string value, right? This is response, and I'll convert this string to which class? I'll convert this string to font class. So I'll mention font dot class. Now it will return font object, right? Font info. Now this font info I'll pass here. Okay, similar kind of thing here. I just call this API using the WebClient. Here I call this same API using the RestTemplate. Okay, let's start the application. So first start the font services. So my font services is running on 9091. Now I will call this user services. Now the user service is running on 9090. So in user controller, in this API I will send the request. So in postman, so if you see here, this is the create investment post API. This is 9090. I'll send this font ID 1 amount. So if here, if you check, this is get font, right? So if you'll send this one, I'll get the information of font information. Same information I collect from the user services. Okay, so just call this API. Yeah, now I got all these things, font ID, amount. These two things I calculated based on the font information, right? So this is how we can call the font services by using REST template. So if you'll see here, this is the URL, right? Here I have hard coded the URL, right? What's the problem if I hard coded the URL? So I hard coded the IP address as well as the port number. Suppose my font service, now I have one instance. Suppose my font service has 3 instances. Then how I'll call here? So we can't use like this, right? We can't write the hard code because in 3 instances have 3 different IP and 3 different port number. If I use hard coded, then this is calling the particular method. So how we will overcome this problem using service registry, I will discuss. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Coding Care. Today I will discuss one of the concept called service registry. So what is service registry? Okay, so in the last video I discussed how one services communicate with another services, right? So in user services, if you will see here in user controller, when I call this create investment API, in here I call this create investment method, and here if you'll see here I call this fund API. This is get request, and I am passing this fund ID, and based on the fund ID I am fetching the fund information, and this API is running on fund services. Okay, in here if you'll see it, if you'll check here inside controller, this is my fund controller and this is the API. Okay, so based on the information I'm calculating some of the fields. This is how we call one services to another services. But thing is here I hard code the URI. Then what is the problem if I will do the hard coded? The first problem is, suppose this is my user services, okay, and this is my font services. Now this is user service and this is font services. Now font services running on one instance. One instance is nothing but one port number. If you'll go here, now if you'll check here, the font is the font API running on 9091. Okay, so here I can mention this is running on 9091 port. Okay, so suppose I created one more instance of the font here. Here I created three instances of the font. This is running on 9091, this is running on 9092, and this is running on 9093. Okay, and the URL also different, I means IP address also different. Suppose this instance have IP address, let's say 192 something. Okay, and this have something, let's say this is 1, and this is something, let's say this is 2. So this is also font service, this is also font services. I created three instances of my font service having IP address is different and port number also different. So in that cases, if I'll call the font API from the user services, and if I'll do the hard code from here, then it might be call only one instance, right? It will not call all the instance. Here I can't call this instance or can't call this instance. So in that case, what we'll do? So now the service registry came. So what's the service registry? Service registry is nothing but, suppose think that this is my service registry. Okay, just think that this is a font book directory. Okay, so this is my service registry. Okay, and suppose think that this is a font book directory. Okay, this font book directory have saved the all the information about our number. Okay, if I want to dial something or if I want to call someone, then I can just go to the font book directory and I'll search the name, then I can call directly. Okay, the service registry also something how. Okay, so what it will do, so this one keep the track of the each of the services IP address and port number. Okay, it will keep all the track of this information, all the funds and all the services information. Okay, suppose I have three instances of my fund services and different port and different IP address. So the service registry will keep all the information about our services. Okay, suppose the benefit is, so user service wants to connect to the fund services. Okay, so user service will go to the service registry. It will ask, hey service registry, I want fund information and I want to call the fund API, please help me where it is, what's the IP address and what's the port number. Okay, the user will go to this one. Okay, the user will go to this one, to the service registry, and it will ask, hey what is the IP and port number, and I want to call fund service API. Okay, I want to call the fund service API, just tell me what's the IP and what's the port. So it will help to find out the IP address and fund information, then only the user can send the requests to here. This is the way we can solve using the service registry. Also it is helping to load balancing. Suppose user said like I want the fund information and I'll pass this get fund by ID. I'll pass the fund ID. I'll not mention IP address and port number. I'll only mention the service name instead of port number and IP address. I'll tell I want fund services. What I'll tell? I'll tell I need fund services. Okay, then I want to call get fund ID API. That's it. But the service registry, how to send the request to one of the instances. That's why the registry can help the distributor to request the send. Either the request will send to here or here or here. This is nothing but load balancing. Okay, well, first is it will help to service discovery, and second is it will help the load balancing, and third is when the system is down, then the registry can ensure the system redirects to request to the healthy instances. Now this is fair, right? This is not healthy, this is running, right? This is healthy and this is also healthy. Okay, so he knows, service registry know which is healthy, then only he sends the request. Okay, this is the purpose of the service registry. Then now how we'll implement the service registry? Okay, so we'll use Eureka. Okay, Eureka is the service registry. First we need to add the dependency of Eureka server. Let's create one services. First I'll create one Spring Boot project. Okay, this is new Spring Boot project, and here I'll create one service registry. Then next here I'll add the Eureka server. Okay, that's it. Then next, then finish. Now my service registry is created. Now in the results in properties file, what we need to mention here, first server.port number I will change. So port is let's say 8761. So this is by default, it's running on port number 8761. Okay, now the second thing is we need to add the properties, something register with Eureka client register with Eureka stir with Eureka equal to false, because this is something, this is service registry. Okay, this is not a client, that's why you are making it as false, otherwise it will give the error. Okay, it will trying to search the client by itself. Okay, then something called fetch registry, Eureka client fetch registry, this is also need to be false. Now application.properties file is ready, I'll run this service. Okay, this is, I'll run this service. So failed to start bin Eureka. Okay, so first we need to enable the Eureka server. So in src, in application, we need to add one annotation called @enable Eureka. Okay, Eureka server, then restart the application. Okay, restarted, now it's running on 8761. If I'll go to my here and localhost 8761, okay, now no service has registered inside this Eureka, right? Then how I will register my service to this Eureka service registry? Suppose here I have created font service 1 and one is user service, there are two services there. I want to register these two services inside this service registry. Suppose I will go to fund services, first I will add one dependency called Eureka client. So I'll add here Eureka client. I'll go to the maven repository, Eureka client, Spring Cloud Starter, Netflix Eureka client. Yeah, this is the one. We can just copy the dependency and add here. Now after adding the dependency, I'll go to the properties file. This is properties file. I'll mention the URL where the service registry is running. Service registry now is running in localhost 8761, right? This one I need to tell here where is my service registry is running. So one properties is there, Eureka dot client dot service URL. Yeah, service URL dot default gen. Here I need to mention the URL, right? And slash Eureka. Okay, now this is, so this is where I can mention the address of the service registry. Okay, so now one more thing I need to add, that is called load balancing. Okay, spring dot cloud spring dot cloud, not this one, dot something retrieve mechanism is there, retrieve dot enable, this is true. Okay, this will help to do the load balancing work. Okay, so now the similar kind of thing, I just copy these two fields, then I just go to my user service. This is my user service, and in the resource in application.properties I just add these two properties. Now why it's giving error? Because I did not add the dependency. I just copy the dependency here. Here I just copy the dependency. This is Eureka client, and I'll go to that. This is user service form.xml. Here I can add the dependency. Okay, suppose here I'll add the dependency. Now just rerun the application. Fund services I just running. Now this is my user services. Okay, now two services has run. Just go to the Eureka, just refresh it. The fund services is running on this, so it will assign one IP address. Okay, and this is my fund service name, application name. This is user service application name. This is how Eureka service registry works. Okay, now my fund services and user services register inside Eureka service registry. Okay, I have in font services only one instance is running. Let's say one more instance is running in font services. How we can do that? Suppose I just copy this project, and just paste it. This is font services 2. Okay, and okay, just copy it. And here what I'll do, I just change the port number. This is 9092. Okay, this is 9092. Okay, perfect. Now this one also I just running this application. Okay, it started. Now I just refresh it. See, now my fund services has two instances. Okay, if I will call this one, this user service, this one directly it will call, right? Instead of how I'll call this one or this one, how the service registry works. So instead of mentioning this localhost 9091, I just mention this service name here. Okay, I'm not mentioning IP address or port number. First it will go to this fund services, then it checks in fund services that is two instance is there. Okay, so here load balancer will help to either this API will call or this instance will call, right? So just rerun this application. So I just changed here, then I just go to my user services and stop it. Then I just restart my this one. Okay, Spring Boot up. Okay, now I call this API here, create investment /1. Okay, I'm getting 500. Why? So let's check the unknown host exception fund services. Because this is something dispatcher servlet failed to client resource exception get request fund. Okay, maybe this is not found because of the load balancer we did not configuration. When we are calling this API by using the REST template, okay, I have to mention the load balancer as well. So in the configuration section, okay, this is REST template, I can mention @load balanced. Okay, load balanced, then only it will work. Okay, again just restart the system. Okay, it's restarted. Now send the request. Yeah, now my response came. I did not mention any IP address or port number. Okay, see here one services is running on two instances. One instances is running on this IP address, and this is the port number, and this is the IP address, and this is the port number. Okay, here I am not doing any hard code. Instead of I am passing the fund services, the application name I am passing. Based on the application name, it will check how many instances is running inside this service registry. Then my load balancer helps me to send the request one of the instances. This is how our service registry works. Okay, thank you guys. Next video I'll discuss how API gateway is working. Yeah, thank you everyone. Bye. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel Coding Care. Today I will discuss one of the microservices concept called API gateway. In this picture you can see that the request is coming to this API gateway, and the API gateway is communicate with Eureka service registry. What is mean by API gateway? So API gateway is nothing but it's a component which sits between client and our services, multiple services. For example, so let's say this is my API gateway. Okay, this is API gateway. So when the request will come, the request will come from where? The request will come from different client, right? The client is nothing but, let's say this is my one of the client. So this is mobile application, and this is web application, and let's say this is postman. Okay, this is postman. So the request is coming from different client, and the API gateway will catch the request and forward the request to the different service. Suppose this is my one of the service, this is my one of the service, this is my one of the service. So it sits between client and services. Okay, what's the benefit if you are using this API gateway? So first benefit is, we can say, it's a centralized request routing. What is centralized request routing? So before the API gateway, when I am sending the request, I am sending the request to this particular server, okay, this one or this services. So I am just give the IP address as well as the port number, and I'll hit the services. Okay, let's say I have 100 of services, then I have to remember all the service information, right, like URL and the port number, all these things I need to remember. So, and if you'll send the request, there is no common entry point here. The request can come to this services, the request can come to these services, and this request is coming from client. Okay, so there is no common entry point. So when we'll implement our API gateway, it's a centralized request routing. So the request will come to this API gateway first, then only the API gateway will routing the request to the particular service. Okay, this is one of the benefits we can get by using API gateway. Then the second benefit will get like load balancing. I have already discussed in my previous video how the load balancing is work. Suppose this is my services. Okay, suppose these services have three instances. Okay, this is one instance, and this is one instance, and this is one more instance. This is instance 1, this is 2, and this is 3. Then when I'll send the request from here, the first the request will go to the API gateway. Then API gateway will send the request to this service, but which of the service it will send the request? So it will have to load balancing. Based on the load balancing, it will send the request to the particular services. This is one of the feature we are getting by using API gateway. Then third is authentication. Okay, authentication. First I'll send the request to the API gateway, then API gateway will sends the or filter the request. First it will check for validation whether it's authenticated or not, then only it will send the request to the particular service. Okay, we are centralize the authentication request also. Then API integration. What is the mean by API integration? API integration is nothing but it will combine the data from different services. Like suppose this is one of the services, let's say user service. Okay, and this is one more services called order detail services. Order details service. Okay, so here two services is there, one is user service and one is order detail service. So when I'll send the request to this API gateway, suppose this is an API gateway, I send the request to here. Now the API gateway suppose call this user services and order detail services. So it will get the data from user services and order detail services, then he can combine these two response and sends back to the client. This is one of the helps we can get by using the API gateway. Then next is monitoring and analytics. Like suppose I just wanted to metrics like collect metrics like request, how many request came, the count of request. Okay, how many request came, or what's the response time, error rates, all these things I can also monitoring by using API gateway. So this is the feature we can get by using the API gateway. First it's centralized request routing, then load balancing, then authentication, and then API integration, then monitoring. Now the question is how we will implement the API gateway. Okay, let's go to coding part. Here I have already created 4 services. One is fund service, one is fund service 2. Like I have created 2 instances of my fund service, then service registry, and then user service. Let's start this service registry. Okay, then I can start the fund services, then user services. Okay, now I'll create one project, okay, which I can implement the API gateway. Spring Boot starter project, then API gateway. I can here change like API gateway. Then next here I'll add dependency like cloud gateway. Okay, cloud something gateway is there. Okay, there is 2 gateways there, one is normal gateway and one is reactive gateway. So we will use Spring Cloud gateway. Okay, then we need to add this dependency reactive gateway. Okay, then third thing is Spring Boot Web. Then next is we can add the dependency for Eureka discovery client. Okay, then next this is finish. Here API gateway created. Now I just change the port number. So instead of properties file, I'll create one YAML file here also, right? File application dot YAML. So here first I can mention the application name. Spring dot application name is this is API gateway, then server dot port, right? So I can mention this one first is server port. Okay, this one. So suppose it is running on 8080. Okay, now I'll add for Eureka client, right? So service URL Spring Cloud Service Registry Eureka client service URL, yes, this one. Then default churn with I'll mention the where the Eureka is running. Okay, the Eureka is running on localhost 8761. Okay, I'll just copy this path, paste it. Okay, now why it is giving error? It is Eureka client. Okay, fine. Then after adding this property, I have to enable the Eureka client, right? In API gateway, I'll go here. I can enable discovery client. Now when I'll send the request to this API gateway, I'll routing the request to that particular services. Okay, so for example, I'll send the request to the fund services. Instead of sending the request to the fund service directly, I'll access this fund service through the API gateway. Then how I'll configure the routing logic here to call this or to routing this request to this fund services. Here one properties is there like routes. Spring Cloud Gateway routes ID equal to, suppose I can mention fund service. This one I can give any name. Okay, this ID is a unique ID, and I'll call to the fund services. That's why I mention here ID is fund services. Okay, then I'll mention the URI. Here URI I need to mention like I'll use the load balancing here. Okay, LB is nothing but load balancer colon double slash. Then if I'll go to here in Eureka, I just here the fund service running on this one and the user service running on this port number. Here I'll mention load balancing colon, instead of mentioning the IP address, we can mention only the application name here. Okay, application name, that's it. Then I'll use predicate. Now in the predicates I need to mention the URL name. Suppose I'll send the request and the request will go to the fund services. Okay, so in the fund services, if you will go to the controller class, here I just mention /fund. This is request mapping. Then after that /fund, there are so many endpoint is there. So I can mention like if the request come to this /fund, then I'll call this API. So in predicate section, I need to mention hyphen path equal to, I can mention fund /star. So when we'll send the request to here fund services, okay, first it will go here like LB colon fund services. This is load balancer. It will go to the service registry here. Based on the application name, okay, it will send the request to either any of the instances. Like now in fund services only one instance is there. Suppose I'll create one more instance, then it will either call to this service or this services. Okay, then which API will call? Suppose I'll call this API, this create fund, okay, or get fund by ID. Then it will check the application YAML like /fund. This is the first mapping, /fund, then *. I am allowing all these endpoints here, but why it's giving error? path slash fund slash star star. Okay, yeah, there is some indentation problem, that's why it's giving error. Now I'll run this API gateway. See here, application Spring MB is not found on class path, which is incompatible with Spring Cloud Gateway. Okay, when we will use Spring Cloud Gateway, we have to use like either application is reactive, or we can add the dependency for Spring Boot starter web flux. Okay, so this is not supported with a normal Spring web MVC. It is supported for a reactive application. So here I can mention the web application type. So type is, okay, web application, yeah, web application type. So I can mention this is reactive. Okay, either we can mention in properties file reactive, or we can add the Spring Boot starter web flux. But why it's giving error? Yeah, due to some indentation problem. So here, yeah, I can, yeah, it's fine now. Let's run the application. Now I just run this application. Yeah, now why it's giving error? Properties under gateway predicates to use value path. Okay, maybe this path is not colon, it's equal. Okay, yeah, now just run this one more time. Yeah, now the API gateway has started on 8080. Now I'll send the request. Suppose this is in this postman, this is fund services. So here I have one API called get fund API, and I am passing 9091. If I'll send the request, I'm getting the data, but I'll send the request to this particular services. I'll create here, like I can duplicate this API. Instead of get fund through API gateway. So now here I'll send the request to the API gateway. My API gateway is running on 8080. Now I'm not sending the request to the fund services. Instead of I'm sending the request to the 8080. If you'll check here in Swagger, just refresh it. Yeah, now API gateway also running. Now I'll send the request to here, this localhost 8080 fund get fund by ID. This one is something like I'll send the request to the API gateway. It's not the particular service. So send it. Yeah, now I got the response. The request is coming this API gateway. This API gateway will connect it to the service registry and find the service name. Okay, based on the service name, he is sending the request. Suppose I'll run this one also. This one service. Yeah, now started. I'll go to the service registry. Here I just refresh it. Now the fund service has two instances. Okay, now if I'll send the request also, I can get the response. See, so this is how API gateway is working. Thanks for watching my video. In the next lecture, I'll come with one more microservice topic. Okay, thank you once again. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Coding Care. Today I'll discuss one of the microservice concept called circuit breaker. What is circuit breaker design pattern? So circuit breaker design pattern is used in distributed system. Okay, this is used in distributed system. Why? To prevent repeated failures, and it will improves system resilience. So what is that mean? For example, suppose I have multiple services. This is one service, this is one service, and this is one service, and this is one services. And suppose this service is calling to this microservice. Okay, and this service is repeatedly failing. At that time, what we need to do to avoid the repeated falling or repeated call these microservices? Because if this microservice is repeated falling, then no need to call, right? How to handle this scenario? So circuit breaker comes. Using the circuit breaker, we can implement how to reduce the load on falling services. Let's get started. Here you can see there are multiple services is there. I have already explained API gateway, service registry, all these things I have already explained in my previous video. Okay, so now let's say this is my font services. Okay, and in this font services, if you'll see here in controller class, I have created two REST APIs. One is creating the font and another is get the font. Okay, so here for creating font I am passing the font entity class, and the same entity class if I'll go to service and I am saving this font information in font tables. Okay, so here if I will see in font class, the font have font id, font name, description, asset type, subcategory, expense ratio, and nav is nothing but net asset value. Okay, and here in postman I am passing the net asset value here. So this is my API, I am passing this information to create the new font. Okay, but here what I will do, instead of passing the net asset value, I will call one of the service called pricing service, and I'll pass fund ID. Based on the fund ID, I'll get the price and I'll set this price to this net asset value. So for now I don't have pricing services. Okay, let me create the pricing services first. So create new, this is Spring Starter project, this is pricing service, and I'll add the Eureka discovery client and Spring Web. Okay, next, finish. Now the pricing service is created. Here I'll create one package called dot controller. In controller I am creating one class called pricing controller. Finish. Then here I'll make it as at the rate rest controller. Okay, and here public double get price, get price. Now I'll pass at the rate path variable and string fund ID. At the rate get mapping, and this is slash get price, then slash I'm passing fund ID. Now I'll return any price. For example, suppose I'm writing some if condition. First I'll convert this fund ID to integer, int id equal to integer dot percent of fund ID. Now if id is equal to let's say 123, okay, then the value is double price equal to 0.0. Now price equal to let's say 129.45. okay, now else if id equal to let's say 124, then price equal to 134.78. now I'll return price. Okay, I just run this server. Yeah, cannot execute request on unknown server. Why? This is a problem in instance of replicator. Okay, so let me add the discovery client also. For in we have already this one. Yeah, this one we can add in properties file. and I am changing the port number, server.port, let's say 9094. Okay, now rerun this one. Okay, let me run the service registry first. Now if you'll go to here localhost 8761, so now the pricing service is off. Now I'll call this API. So localhost, this is 9094 get price slash 123. Okay, why it's giving error? This is get price. Okay, 123. Yeah, now I got the response. Okay, now the pricing service is ready. So I'll call this API from the fund services. Okay, so in Postman I am passing the net asset value also, but instead of passing this net asset value, I am calling this pricing controller get price API. I am fetching this price and I'll set here and with net asset value. Then how we'll do, or how I'll call this pricing services? We need rest template. So rest template, and here I'm using at the rate auto add. I'm doing field injection. Then here in first I'll make the URL string URL equal to, this is the URL, and just copy it and paste it. For now I am passing this value as hard coded. Okay, so here I am fund dot set net asset value is, so first I'll call this API, right? So rest template dot get for object. The first parameter will pass URL and the second parameter I'll pass double dot class. This is URL. Yeah, now it will return the double and this is price. Now this price I'll set here. Now when we'll call this API using the REST template, we'll get some exception like REST client exception. Yeah, and this will throw new runtime exception. Suppose pricing service, I'm passing some message like pricing service is not available. Okay, then with I'm passing the exception object. Okay, now I'll run this fund services. Yeah, now it's started. I'll go to the Eureka, just let me check. Yeah, this fund service and pricing services is up. Now I'll call this create fund API. I'm not passing the net asset value here. Okay, just send the request. Yeah, now 129.45 is came. So here we have hard coded this value, right? In pricing services I'm hard coded this value. If this 123 will come ID, then this price will return. Okay, now just check the MySQL. So here, yeah, now 129.45 net asset value is set. Now the question is, suppose if this pricing controller, okay, so pricing services like this is pricing services. Now I'm stop the server. Okay, now the pricing services is not up. So if I'll check here in service registry, now only fund services is running. So I'll go to here, I'll send the request. Yeah, now I am getting 500 internal server. Why? Just check the log. Here it says connection refused. Okay, so now we need to apply how we'll add the circuit breaker here. First of all, we need to add the dependency in fund services. This is my fund services. In form.xml, I'll add the dependency for resilience 4J. Yeah, now Spring Cloud Starter Circuit Breaker Resilience 4J dependency added. Now in fund services, I am writing this code for at the rate circuit breaker, and here we need to pass the name is, for example, any name we can write, like this is pricing service. Okay, then next parameter is fallback method. So if this method will fail, then which method will call? This is nothing but fallback method. So for example, this is I'm setting get default price, and this method we need to create get default price, and this method will return double. This is I'm making as private. Okay, so this is my fallback method. So if this method will fail to call this service, then this fallback method will call. So in this method, okay, what is the parameter we need fund, right? We need fund, as well as I need some exception. So this is throwable. Okay, throwability. Now here fund dot set nav is, suppose I am passing some default value, so 135.98 fund repo dot save of fund. Okay, so this is my default one. Instead of returning double, I can return fund directly. Yeah, this is return. Yeah, now everything is good. Okay, let me rerun this fund service. Okay, fund service is rerun. Now I'm sending the request. Yeah, now see that net asset value is coming 135.98. So here this method has failed to call this API. So I have written the alternative method. This is fallback method. Now the fallback method is setting some default value. Okay, 135.98. So this is how our circuit breaker is working. So in circuit breaker also 2-3 concept is there, like open state, closed state, and half open state. Suppose I am sending the request to here. Okay, and here I'll call these services. So I just wanted to call these services 5 times. After 5 times, if it will not given any response, then directly I call this method instead of calling this method. So how to configure? So in fund services, in resource, in application.properties file, I'll add some properties. Yeah, this one. So here failure rate of threshold 50. That means if it is more than 50% of the request fails. Okay, if it is more than 50% of the request fail, in the sliding window, like if you check here, the sliding window is 10. Suppose the sliding window is 10 and I'm sending 5 time of request. Okay, and this is 50% request, right? If this 50% request of fail, then the circuit will open. Okay, we'll check here one by one. So here if you check the console, I'm just clearing the console, I'm sending the request. See here. Okay, so we can do one thing. We can write some system.out.println in font service. Here I'm writing, yeah, system.out.println create fun method call. Okay, here I'll write one more, sysout. This is fallback method called. Okay, here I'll add some message like t dot get message. Yeah, now I just rerun this one service. Yeah, just clear the console. I'm sending the request here. Here see fallback method call and fun method call. 2 times I send. Yeah, same. Third time, fourth time, then fifth time. Okay, now I am sending one more time. See here, this is first time call, create one method. This is second time call, this is third time, this is fourth time, and this is fifth time. After fifth time, I send the request again. Okay, instead of calling this create one method call, it directly call this fallback method here. And now if you check here, circuit breaker pricing service is open and does not permit further calls. Okay, directly it calls. Now here I have mentioned in properties file, like this is wait duration in open state is 10 second. 10 second means now I got this open state, right? So if I'll send this again, okay, now it is not open state, again it calls the create one method. Okay, when it will be open state, then after I'll send the request again, then again it will open state. But after 10 second, if I'll send the request here, again it will call this create one method instead of call direct fallback method. So this is how open and closed is working. Okay, closed is nothing but the API is working properly. Okay, so this is how we can implement the circuit breaker design pattern. So please keep watch and share my video. Okay, thanks everyone. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Coding Care. Today I'll discuss one more concept in microservice called config server. So what is config server and why config server? Okay, so before moving to config server, first let me explain why we need config server. For example, I have multiple services is there. So in this picture you can see I have two services, one is user service and one is font service. Okay, so in these two services, what I have configured in user services, I have configured the DB information like DB URL, username and password. Okay, so for example, these two services using one database. Okay, so here for user service I have configured the database information, and for font services also I have configure the database information, and this is duplicated across these services, right? So URL, username, password, and this URL, username, password for same database is duplicated across multiple services. Apart from that, so this user services is a Eureka client, right? And this font service is also a Eureka client, so we need to add that property also in each of the microservices. So here if you'll see properly, this information or this configuration is duplicated across all the services. Then how I'll avoid the code duplicacy? To avoid the code duplicacy, Spring Cloud config server came. So before configuration, the config server, first we'll create one Git repository, and inside this Git repository we have write all our common configuration like this DB information or Eureka configuration, like all our common configuration across the services. All the common configuration I'll keep inside the Git repository. Okay, so the config server will collect this information from the Git repository, then it will act as a config server. Then now my service like user service and font service will read this information from the config server by configuring this property. Okay, but here if you'll see here, AWS secret manager is there. What is this? Here in Git repository we can't write like URL, username, password, right? So username, password we are not writing hard code in the Git repository, we will not expose directly, so we need to keep inside this AWS secret manager username and password, and we are retrieving this username and password from the AWS secret manager. Okay, this is how we are implementing config server. Let's implement without delay. Let's go to Spring Toolset. Here I have so many services is there, but I don't have the config server. Okay, before creating the config server, first we'll create the Git repository, right? In this picture, first we'll configure all this information inside Git repository. First let's create one Git repository. So Git inside Git, here we can create, we'll go to the repository section and we'll create a new repository. Here config server repo. Okay, this is public. Okay,
add a readme file, then create repository. Now the config server repository has created. So here I'll add one file, add file, create new file. Okay, here the name is application dot properties. Then inside this application dot properties, what I need to keep? So I'll give the common configuration here. If we'll go to the services, so in fund services, if we'll go to the resources and application dot properties, and this is user services, and this is application dot properties. Here MySQL related these things. Okay, this one is same as the fund services information, right? So this is the common configuration. I can move here this common configuration. Okay, I'm deleting from here. Now I'll keep this one in git repositories. Now one more common configuration is there. Okay, I'll removing from here also. Now this one Eureka client default done, right? And load balancer retrieve true. Okay, here also is there. Okay, this one also I can do. Just go, just remove here and here also. Okay, now I'll keep here. Now comment the changes. Yeah, now our git repository is ready. Now I have hard coded this value. For now I have hard coded this URL, username and password. Okay, later we'll use the AWS secret manager. Okay, now the git repository is ready. Now we'll create the config server. So this is also microservices. Okay, we'll go to here, then file, new starter project. This is config server. Okay, config server. Now next, here one dependency is there, config server. This one config server, not client. Okay, config server. Next, finish. Okay, now config server also ready. So here in config server, first we have to enable config server, right? At the rate enable config server. Okay, then second thing is, here the config server will read the common configuration from the git repository, right? But where I will mention the git repository URL. So here in properties file we need to mention, first mention the port number, server.port, let's say 9096. Okay, so here I'll add one property called spring.cloud config or not allow overrides. It's some git URI dot, yeah, git URI. So we need to mention the URL of the git. So go to the git here. Okay, code is copy this one and here paste it. Okay, now the config server also ready. Now the config server will connect to this GitHub repository. It will fetch the common configuration from this repository and it will act as a config server. Okay, now config server is ready. Now how this user service or fund services, okay, read this common configuration from the config server. Okay, let's go to each of the services. First I'll go to the fund services. In form.xml, first I need to add the dependency for config client. So go to the Maven central Maven repository, Maven repo, yeah, config client, Spring Cloud config client. Yes, this one. Yes, I am using latest one. Copy this one, then paste it here. No need to mention the version number. Okay, removing this one. Yeah, now config client dependency is added. Now I'll go one of the services and fund services properties file. So here I'll mention on which port number our config server is running. I'll use one property called spring dot config dot import. Okay, equal to, so this config server, okay, this config server running on 9096, right? So here I can mention like http colon double slash localhost colon 9096. Now same property I am just copy and pasted in user services as well. Okay, here. Now our service is ready. Okay, so first I'll run the service registry, then I'll run the config server. Yeah, now I am running fund services. Why it is giving unable to load config data from http colon localhost http://localhost. Okay, so here we need to add config server. Okay, then colon, then http colon localhost colon 9096. Yeah, same one I just copied here also. Okay, instead of http localhost, please ensure first config server it is there. Let's rerun the fund service again. Okay, now user services. Okay, why user service is giving error, unable to load config data from config server? Okay, maybe in user services we have not added the dependency. Yeah, we have not added the dependency. Go to here, just copy it, okay, and paste here. Okay, now dependency is added. Now just rerun this application. Yeah, now it's fine, right? So open the postman. Okay, I am hitting this fund service as get fund API. I'm passing the one is fund ID. I'm sending the request. Yeah, now I'm getting the response. In this way we can implement the config server to avoid the code duplicacy in application.properties file. But here in repositories application.properties I have configured the common properties, but thing is I have used the hard coded, right? Root, this is password. Okay, the username and password I have hard coded, and the URL also. So instead of hard coding this value, I'll read this value from this AWS secret manager. Here I in this diagram you can see I am reading this I'm reading the value from this AWS secret manager. In next video I'll come up with how we'll work with AWS secret manager. Okay, if you have any doubt and question, please feel free to reach my comment section and ask the question. So definitely I'll answer the question of yours. Okay, thank you guys. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Coding Care. Today we are going to dive into a important concept in microservice. But before I reveal the topic, let me ask you a quick question. Have you ever faced performance issue in your Spring Boot application due to repeated database calls? Or have you wondered how to improve response time efficiently? Well, the solution to this Spring Boot cache. So in this video, I'll explain what caching is and how it works in Spring Boot and how it helps optimize your application's performance. So stay tuned till the end. Let's get started without delay. First, let me explain what is caching mechanism. Suppose this is my Spring Boot application, and this Spring Boot application is fetching the data from the database, and this is, let's say this is database.
This is MySQL database, let's say. Here, suppose I am sending the request to the application for getting some response. Suppose I have a fund services and I am passing the fund ID, I am getting the fund information. In first request, I am sending the fund ID is 1 and the request will go to this application, and the application will read the data from the database and give the response. If I'll send the request again by passing the same fund ID, then again it will go to the database and it will fetch the record and give to me. If I'll send the request again by passing the same fund ID, then again it will go to the database and fetching the data and it will give the response. But here, if I'll send the fund ID is 1 each and every time, then the application is connected to the database each and every time, so performance issue will be happen. To overcome these problems, what we will do, I'll create one caching here. Okay, so first time when I'll send the request, first it will check whether the data is available inside cache or not. If it is not available, then it will go to the database, then it will fetch the record, then first it will store the data into the cache, then it will send the response. Then again when I'll send the request, it will go to cache and it will check whether the data is available or not. If it is available, so instead of hitting the database, it will read the data from caching and give the response. This is how Spring Boot caching mechanism is working. Okay, let's do implementation. How will work in our Spring Boot project. So here you can see there are so many services is there. Fund services, config server, API gateway, all these things. Okay, in fund services, here in fund controller, I have two endpoint. One is create fund and one is get fund, and we are passing fund ID. Here let me create two more endpoint for deleting and for updating. So here let me create one method, public response entity, and let's say this is update one, right? So fund, then update fund, and then I am passing the fund as a request body at the rate request body fund, then call the update fund method from fund services. Let's say fund service dot update fund by passing fund object. Now it will return the updated fund updated fund equal to, let me create this method, create method update fund in fund service. So here it will return the fund object. Here I'll write fund repository dot save of fund. Okay, it will return the updated fund. Now I'll return this updated fund. Okay, so here I can return this one like new response entity by passing save fund and http updated fund and http status dot okay. Yeah, so now make it as annotation at the rate put mapping, and this is slash update fund. Okay, let me create one more endpoint for delete the fund at the rate get mapping. I'm passing the path as slash delete fund. Then here instead of get method name, it is delete fund, and it will return, okay, this is returning string. Then request, instead of request param, I can use at the rate path variable, and here I'll pass the ID as well as fund ID. Now here this is fund ID. Now the fund ID will come as a string. So here what I'll do, I'll convert to this fund ID into integer. So integer dot percent of fund id. Then this fund id I'll pass to this service class. So fund service dot delete fund by passing this fund id. Okay, so let me create this method, create method delete fund, and it will return as string. Then now here I can make int one as fund id. This is fund id. Then first I'll check whether the fund id is available or not. So fund repo dot find by id, and I'll pass the fund id. So it will return a fund object, right? Existing fund. Now I'll check if existing fund dot is present. If it is present, then fund repo dot delete by id, and I'll pass the fund id here. Then it will not return anything. It's yeah, it's void. Here I can declare one variable string deleted message equal to null. Now if it is deleted successfully, then I can update the variable delete message equal to deleted successfully of id plus fund id. Okay, now if it is not, else deleted message equal to fund id is not available. Okay, now I'll return the deleted message. Now same here I can return, okay, yeah, deleted fund. Okay, now I'll return, instead of new string I can return this new response entity. Then instead of shared fund, it's a deleted fund. Why it is giving error, this response entity? Okay, so I'll wrapping this one also a response entity of string. Yeah, now four endpoint is ready. One is create fund, one is get fund, one is updated fund, and one is deleted the fund API. Now I'll implement the Spring Boot caching. So before implement the Spring Boot caching, we need the dependency, right? So first we'll go to the Maven repository, Maven repo. Yeah, here search Spring Boot caching, Spring Boot cache. So here this one, here this one, Spring Boot starter cache. So just copy this one, and here in form.xml file I just paste it here. Okay, now no need to mention the version, it will update automatically. I'll deleting this one. Now we have added the dependency. Now in application.properties file we need to mention which type of caching we need to apply. There are different caching mechanism is there, like simple cache, EH cache, Redis cache. So we need to mention here which type of cache I need to implement in my project. For now I am using the simple cache. In the next video I'll use how we can implement the Redis cache. So here we need to add one property called spring dot cache dot type. This is simple, right? So we need to mention simple. Yeah, that's it. So when we will mention the spring cache type is simple, internally concurrent map cache manager will be created. First of all, we need to enable the caching. So go to the main class font service application. Then here we need to enable the cache. Enable caching. Now we have done add the dependency. Now we have mentioned in properties file which type of caching I will be apply. Then I have enabled the caching. Now I will create one class called caching configuration. So create one class called caching config. So this is not font service, I can create in config package. Yeah, then finish. So here make it as @ configuration. Now what I'll do here, I'll create the bin for cache manager. So here create a method called public cache manager. Yeah, cache manager. Then I'll return new concurrent map cache manager. This one I'll return. Now while I'll creating this object, I'll mention the cache name as well. So let's say I'm mentioning the fund. Here I can mention multiple cache name here, like fund, suppose user cache. So user related things I'll keep inside user cache, and fund related things I'll keep inside the fund cache. That's why I can mention like this one. So for now I'll mention only fund. That means I'll create the fund cache. Okay, now I'll make it as @bin. Now it's done. Now I'll go to the service class. This is my service class. Here I have already created a method for get the fund, this one. So I call this method get fund method. Here I'll apply the caching mechanism. I'll use one annotation called @cacheable. Here I'll mention value. So value is nothing but cache name. So what is the cache name? We have already defined in the configuration file. Here the cache name is fund. So here I can mention the cache name is fund. Now what is the key? So when we'll store the data, it will store as a key and value pair, like it's a map. So the key is equal to fund id I'll mentioning. So instead of direct mentioning fund id, it is has then fund id. So here fund id is string, then it will store here, like it's if I'll pass 1, then the key is 1, then the value is whatever it will return, fund, the value is fund, like that it will store inside the cache. Let me run this application. So before running this application, first we have to run the service registry. Then we have to run this config server, because if you see in my previous video, I have centralized the database information. That's why first I have to run this application like config server, then this fund service. Yeah, now it is running. Let's check localhost :8761. Yeah, here, yeah, this is fund service, right? And then why the config server not came in resources properties file? Okay, this one we did not register into the service registry. Okay, it's fine. Now the fund services is up. Now I'll send the request to this API, get fund API. So go to the postman here, and this is get fund, right? And I'm passing as a fund ID is 46. Send the request. Now the response came, but it takes 1 millisecond. Now I'll send. If you'll check here also, this fund service, and this is the select query. That means it hits the database. Now I'm send it again by passing the same fund id. Yeah, now it's 10 millisecond only. Now this time only call this fund services, but it is not call this database. Okay, that means it is reading the data from the cache. So in this way we can avoid the database hit again and again, and we can increase the performance issue. Now I'll call the delete fund API by passing this fund ID. So here in fund controller, delete fund API is there. And if I'll pass this fund ID as 46, then this record will delete from the database as well as the cache. Then how we'll implement this one in cache? So in delete fund API, here I can use one annotation called cache evict. First we need to mention the cache name. So the cache name is fund and the key equal to is fund id, right? So this is hash and fund id. Let's rerun this application. Yeah, application has started. Now I just send the request to get one. So it is 114 millisecond takes, then second time it will send. Now it is 11 second. That means now this record is available inside an cache. Let's create one more API here, duplicate, and this is delete API, delete fund, and here I'll pass this delete fund API, delete fund, and we need to mention this one is delete and send the request. 405 method not allowed. Why? Okay, so here I did some mistake. Instead of get mapping, we need to use delete mapping. Let's rerun this application one more time. Yeah, it started. Now get one more time and send the request. Okay, now it's 10 millisecond. Now this record is available inside cache. Now when I'll call this delete fund API, and by passing 46, yeah, deleted successfully of id is 46. Now if I'll go to this API and hit it again, it should not be come, right? So I'm sending the request, but it came. Why? Let's check the database. Okay, here, yeah, the 46 record is not available. Okay, but here still it is coming from cache. So when we'll use the cache, we need to handle properly, because if you see here while we are caching the data, we are stored the fund id as a string, but here when you are deleting the fund id from the cache, here fund id is integer, so the data is mismatching. So we can do one thing. Instead of getting the fund id as string, I can get this fund id as a integer. So here I can convert this one, this fund id. Instead of passing string, I'll pass the integer value. So integer dot percent of fund id. Now in fund service, instead of string, I'll take this is an integer value, and no need to convert here. We can directly pass the fund id. Okay, so just rerun this application. Yeah, it started. Now if I'll send, now 47 record is not available. I am sending the 47. Yeah, now it's 119 millisecond. Now I'm sending one more time, it's 10 millisecond. Okay, so now when we'll call this delete fund and I'll pass this 47, then it should be deleted from database as well as the cache, right? So I'll send the request. Now deleted successfully id. Now I'll go to the get fund, I'll hit it again. Yeah, now I'm getting the empty response. That means the 47 key is not available inside the cache. Now we can write the condition also. Like suppose I have a record, list of record I have, and I want to cache whose the fund id is greater than 1. Okay, so here we can write the condition also. Here we can use one property condition, and here we can mention his fund id is greater than of 1. If it is greater than 1, then only the key will store inside the cache. Now rerun the application. Let's check whether this condition is working or not. So I'll go to here, and in get fund, instead of passing 47, I'll pass 1, and I'm sending the request. It is calling the database. If I'm calling again one more time, it call, send again one more time call. So that means it is not going inside to the cache. If I'll send the 47, okay, now, okay, that's 47 already deleted. Okay, 48 I'll pass 48. Yeah, this 48 response I got, and it hit the database. Now if I'll send the request one more time, now it's only 9 millisecond, and it is not calling the database here. So we can write the condition also. Then how to update the cache? Suppose, so this is the fund id 48, I want to change the net asset value. Okay, when I'll change the net asset value, the data should be changed inside the cache, right? So how we can implement this one? So in update fund API, we can use one annotation called cache put. So cache put is nothing but for updating the cache. So here the value is fund, and the key equal to, so this is a fund object, so we can mention like hash of fund dot, inside this fund object this fund id is available, right? So we can copy this variable name and we can paste it here, fund dot fund id. Okay, so let's rerun this application one more time. Okay, so here send the request. Yeah, now this record came. If I'll send it one more time, now it's 14 millisecond. Let's create one more API and update API. This is update fund, this is post request, and what is the URL? Update fund, and I'll not pass this 46. Instead of, I'll pass the body. What I'll pass, so I'll go to the get fund, I just copy this response and beautify. Now I'll change the net asset value. Let's say it's a 99. I just converted to 98 to 99. Now send the request. Again method not, okay, so this is put request, send the request. Yeah, now I got the response as 135.99. Let's check to call this get fund whether this value is updating or not. Yeah, now it's changing to 135.98 to 99. So in this way we can implement the caching mechanism. Now sometimes what happen, suppose my application is refreshing every 1 hour, then how we can implement that also? So this is called time to live. So we are using the Spring cache type is simple. So when we are using the simple cache type, so time to live is not available. So we have to write our own logic. Like we can create one method, public void clear fund cache, and here we can write like sysout fund cache is cleared now. Then what we need to do here, we can use cache evict, and in cache evict the value is fund, and what is the key? So no need to mention the key because we are clearing the cache. Then how will clearing the cache? We need to mention one property called all entries equal to true. True means inside the cache whatever key is there, all the value will be cleared. Now how I can call this method in every 1 hour? Let's, instead of 1 hour I can make it as 20 seconds. So use one annotation schedule. Here fixed rate equal to, so I can mention the, it is in millisecond. So for 20 millisecond is nothing but 20,000. So 20,000 millisecond means is nothing but 20 second.
Now this method will call every 20 seconds and we have to enable this schedule. So here in fund service, in fund service application, I can use at the rate enable scheduling. Let's run this application fund service. Okay, let's clear all these things. Yeah, send the request here. Now it's 9 milliseconds, that means it is unavailable inside the cache. Let's wait for 20 seconds. Yeah, now after 20 seconds font cache has cleared. Now this message has came. Now if I'll send the request, now it's taking 60 milliseconds. Okay, and hits the database. Okay, so every 20 seconds it will call, this method will call. So in this way we can clear the cache. Now if you want to get the information about the cache, how cache is storing look like, then we can write the logic. So here I can create one API, public string get cache info, and this is string, and this is get mapping get cache. Now here how we'll get the caching information, so we need to go to the cache manager. So here I can call the cache manager here, private cache manager cache manager cache manager. Now I'm using at the rate auto add. So here we can call cache manager dot get cache, and I'll pass the cache name here. The cache name is fund. Okay, so it will return a cache. Now we can, okay, directly we can return this cache. So here instead of string I can make it as cache, and instead of doing this, return. Okay, so let's rerun this application, this fund service. Okay, so here just send the request for get fund. Okay, now it's coming from cache. Now I'll create one API for getting the cache information. Cache. Now here what we'll do, get cache, this is API name, no need to pass the fund ID, send the request. Yeah, this is native cache. Inside the cache is nothing is there, because we can do one thing in fund service. I'll just commenting this part because this one is running every 20 seconds. Rerun the application. Yeah, it started. Now I'll go to here, send the request. Now this one I'll send the request. So here the name of this cache is fund, and this is native cache, and only we have one key right inside this cache. This is key and this is value. So this is like a map. Okay, if I'll send the request one more time and I'll passing as, let's say, 52, passing 52 as fund ID. Okay, then again I'll hit this cache API. Yeah, now two record is there inside cache, one is 48 and one is 52. So in this way caching mechanism is working in Spring Boot application. So as of now we have discussed only the simple cache, how we are using the simple cache in Spring Boot application. In the next video I'll tell you how we can use the Redis cache, because if you use the Redis cache, so many benefits we can get. So if you have liked my video, please share and share more and more, and subscribe my channel for the latest video. Thank you everyone. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Coding Care. Today I'll discuss one of the concept called caching mechanism. So in my previous video, this is my playlist in microservices. In the last video I have explained
this Spring Boot caching. Here I have used the simple caching mechanism. So today I'll discuss how we can integrate the Redis in our application. So here if you will go here in font services controller, I have so many endpoint is there. One create font, get font, and update font, delete font. So in this get font API, I have used the cacheable annotation, and we have used the cache put and cache evict also when I am deleting the font. And application.properties file, I have used the Spring cache type is simple. So if you do not have watched my video yet, please go through this microservice playlist and watch all this video, especially this one Spring Boot caching tutorial for beginners, so that you can understand why we are using the cache. So today I'll discuss how we can integrate the Redis in our Spring Boot application. Let's get started without delay. So first of all, what we can do in pom.xml file, we can add the dependency for Redis. So go to the Maven central repository, then search for Spring Data Redis. Yeah, Spring Data Redis, this one. Copy this dependency and paste here. Now one more dependency we needed, that is called Redis. So this is a Redis, and this is a Redis client. So this one we need to add, just copy it and paste it here. Now these two dependency we require, one is Redis and one is Spring Data Redis. Now in application.properties file, this spring.cache.types, here we need to mention, instead of simple we'll use the Redis. So here so many option is there, like caffeine cache, generic, hazelcast. So initially I implemented simple cache, today I'll explain this one, Redis. So we need cache type as Redis. Now before I mention the Redis, first we need to check whether the Redis has installed in our machine or not. So go to terminal and just type Redis server. Yeah, here it says command not found Redis server. That means Redis has not installed on my system. Let me install the Redis first. So go here, and this is the link. I have given this link on description, you can go through here. So I am using Mac OS, then this is the Mac OS. If you are using the Windows, you can go to the Windows, then you can install it. Let me install the Redis first. So this is the command brew install Redis. Yeah, it will install, it will take some time to install. Now Redis has installed. If you want to start that Redis server, just type Redis -server. Redis -server. Yeah, now the Redis server has started. So if you'll see here, the my Redis server is started on 6379 port number. So here in properties file, we need to mention on which port number my Redis server has run. So spring dot data dot Redis, then so this is host is localhost, and Spring Data Redis dot port, the port is 6379. Okay, now I have configured which type of cache I required and in which port number the Redis is running. Now I have to configure the Redis cache manager. Here in configuration classes, caching configuration, for simple I have created this cache manager. So I am just simply commenting this one. Now I'll create the Redis cache manager. Here public Redis cache manager, Redis cache manager, and here I'll pass the Redis connection factory. Okay, so here we need to return the Redis cache manager. So here return Redis cache manager dot builder. Then I'll pass two things. One is Redis connection factory I'll pass, and second thing I'll pass some Redis configuration. Okay, Redis cache configuration I'll pass. So here in this side builder I'll pass this Redis connection factory object, then dot cache defaults, and I'll pass some default configuration here, then dot build. So before that I'll create the Redis connection factory object. So this is the interface. Redis connection factory is an interface. We need to create the object for client. So Redis connection factory, Redis connection factory. Now we can create or return new Redis connection factory. So Redis connection factory is a client for the Redis. Now it is ready. Now we need to pass only cache defaults. Here I'll create the Redis cache configuration object. So Redis cache configuration dot default cache config. Okay, then here I need to mention first how I'll store the data. Suppose I have this one fund I am storing. Okay, so if the fund is null, shall I store or not? So if the null value will come, I will not store. So I can make this disable caching null values, so that null values will not be stored. Then when I'll store the data, it will serialize. Like I'll store font object, the font object will serialize to the JSON and the JSON will store. So I need to mention the serialization. So we have method called serialization, serialize value with. Inside here we can pass Redis serialization context dot serialization pair. Yeah, then dot this one from serializer, and here we need to pass the type of the class. So I am passing new Jackson to JSON serializer, and we need to pass the fund dot class. That's it. Now it will return a Redis. Now it will return a Redis cache configuration. Now this serialization value, or this is Redis cache configuration. This will pass here. Okay, so make it as bin. Now my properties file is ready and the configuration file also ready. The server already started. Let's run the application. But before running the application, first we need to run the service registry. Service registry. Now, yeah, it run. Then config server. Yeah. Now fund service. Yeah, now it started. Now go to the postman, get the fund, send the request. Yeah, now came, it's 157 millisecond time taken. Now 24 millisecond. That means it is coming from caching. So here first time I send the request, the select query executed, and second time I send the request, it is not executed. If I'll send the request again, only the method is called, but select query not executed. So that means it's coming from the cache. But how we can ensure the data is stored inside cache or not? To check in Redis, we can do one thing. We can run the Redis CLI. So go to here in cell, new tab with profile basic. Okay, here some command is there, so we can just type redis hyphen cli. Yeah, now cli came. Now I just wanted to check whether our data is stored or not. This font data having font id 51 has stored or not. How we can check? Just type keys star. Yeah, so keys star means it will print all the keys inside this database. So by default 16 database is there. If you check how many database is there inside Redis, you can use this command like config space get, okay, databases, enter. Why databases? Yeah, databases 16, that means total 16 database is there. But our data in which resides in which database, whether it's database 1 or 2 or 3, how to know? Then we can use one command info key space, just enter. Here if you see db0 means this is database 0, and key 6, total 6 key is available. Okay, average ttl expire 0, average ttl 0. I'll explain what is ttl later, how we can configure also. But now the data, our data is storing inside database 0. Now fund 51 has stored. Okay, but I want to store the data inside database 1. So this is database 0. How to go to inside the database 1? So you can use select 1, hit enter. Now here 1 means this is database 1. So if I'll use the key is a star, then hit enter, this is an empty array because inside this database no key is found. But if I'll go to database 0, how to go to database 0? Select 0. Now keys star, it will print all the keys. So by default our data is going inside this database 0, right? Now how I can send my data to database 1? So here we need to mention in properties file, we need to mention one property called spring boot data redis, sorry, spring data redis dot database is 1. That means when I'll doing the caching mechanism, the data will store inside database. Let me rerun this application on service. Yeah, now it started. Now what I'm doing, instead of 51 I am passing 52 fund id, send the request. Now one more time, now it's 14 millisecond, that means it's coming from cache. So go to here, I just check. Now if I'll check in which database I am present now, then we can do info key space. Okay, now I am okay. Now db0, see db0 has 6 key and db1 has only 1 key. Let's check. Go to select 0, go to database 0. Okay, now put key star. Now 52 is not available. So just now I sent the request to 52. Okay, and this record came, but 52 is not available here. If I'll switch from database 0 to database 1, select 1. Now this is database 1. Now do keys star. Now fund 52 has came. So this is how the data is storing. But this is key, right? How I can see this value? Write the command like get and inside double quote pass this one fund double colon 52, enter. Now you can see the record. So this is how spring data redis is working. In last video I have explained this one, expire time, right? This is nothing but ttl, time to live. So when it will refresh, like every 20 second our caching is refreshing. So here how to implement the TTL is nothing but time to live. So how much time a key will store inside database. For now let's say in CLI, if I do key star here, there is empty array, that means no cache is available inside here. I'm deleting all this key. Okay, now what I can do, I'll implement the TTL here, dot entry TTL, and we can mention the time. So duration is, let's say I am mentioning for 30 second only of seconds, let's say 30 second. Then restart the application. Yeah, now it restarted. Now send the request, that's 52. Now I'm sending the request 53. Now if we'll go here in CLI, just press key star, enter. Now two record is there. Let's wait for 30 seconds whether this key is present or not. Yeah, now we can check whether this key star is available or not. Yeah, now it's empty array, that means after 30 seconds our cache is clearing. So this is how TTL is working. Now one thing, here I am mentioning the serialization, but here I have hardcoded the class name fun.class. Suppose user class is there, then how it will work? So it will not work, right? So we need to mention a generic one. So instead of new Jackson to JSON deserializer, we can mention new generic Jackson to JSON Redis serializer. Yeah, that's it. This one also it will work. Now we can see the data in here. Suppose I'll go to the select 0 and I'll press keys and star. So this is the data is available. If I want to view the fun 51, then what we can do, get inside double quote fun double colon 51, enter. Now I can see the data. But how I can see this data? Through the programmatically. So here we can write one method to view the data. Here create one method, Redis template, this is string and this is fund. Now this is Redis template. Now in this method I'll create the object of Redis template, new Redis template, and it will return the Redis template object. Now this is string and this is fund. After creating the Redis template object, I need to set the factory as well. So I'll pass the Redis connection factory here, Redis connection factory, it's a factory, and here I can set the Redis template dot set connection factory, and I'll pass the connection factory object, this connection factory. Now what we can do, after getting the object, what I'll do, first I'll convert the string or JSON format to object, right? So we'll use the Jackson serialization. So I'll use new generic Jackson to JSON deserializer, and it will return a generic serializer. Okay, now in this serializer I'll add this serializer to the template. So Redis template dot set value serializer, and I'll pass this serializer. Now I'll set the key serializer also. So this Redis template dot key set key serializer, and instead of serializer here we'll pass the Redis template dot get string serializer. Now I'll return the Redis template. Okay, make it as @bin. Now in controller class I'll create one endpoint. So this is endpoint get all fund, then here get all fund. So instead of this one, I'll read the data from Redis template. So here mention Redis template of string, this is fund. Okay, Redis template, make it as @autoair. Now this Redis template dot get keys. So first I'll get all the keys, not this method. We have a method to fetch the key. So Redis template dot, yeah, this one keys, and we need to pass the generic pattern. So this one keys fund double colon star, so it will return all the keys. Okay, now I'll read one by one. If key is not equal to null, then I'll read one by one the key, then I'll fetch the data. So key string key colon keys. Now what I'll do here, Redis template dot, we have method called value, oops for value. So in this method we need to pass the key. So dot get of key, not keys, this is key. Okay, it will return the fund object. Now I'll add this fund to a list. So create one list of fund list equal to new array list. Now I'll add this fund to the list, fund list dot add of fund. Okay, then return fund list. Okay, instead of case, this is list of fund. Let's restart the application. So before sending the request, let's create one more endpoint here. So this is get all fund from Redis. Now instead of get fund, this is the endpoint. Here if I'll send the request, it will giving empty array. Now I'll store some data, 53, 52. If I'll go in terminal, git star 2 record is there. So let's check by calling this API. Yeah, now I get 2 record here. So in this way we can fetch the record from Redis. So in this way we can implement the Redis cache, and in my previous video I have already explained the simple cache how we are implementing. Please watch out my all the videos in the microservices playlist, and if you have like my videos, please share and subscribe my channel. Thank you everyone.